गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत नः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती दीनामवित्रयवधू गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ ॐ नमो भगवते रुद्राय ॐ नमस्ते रुद्रमन्यव उदोध इषवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु धन्वने बाहुभ्यामुदते नमः याध इषुः शिवतमा शिवं बभूवते धनुः शिवा शरव्या यादवदयानो रुद्रमृदया यादे रुद्रशिवा धनुरघोरा भावकाशिनी तया नस्तनुभाषन्दमया गिरिजन्धाभिजागशीः यामिषं गिरिजन्धहस्ते विपश्यस्तवे शिवां गिरिददां कुरु माहि गुंसीः पुरुषं जगत् शिवेन वचसा ध्वा गिरिजाच्च वदामसि यदा नः सर्वमिज्जगदयक्ष्मगुं सुमना असद् अद्य वोचदधिवक्ता प्रथमो देव्योऽभिषग् ऐकुश्च सर्वान् जम्बयन् सर्वाश्च यातु धान्यः असौ यस्थाम्रो अरुण उत बभ्रु सुमङ्गलः ये चेमागुं रुद्रा अभितो दिक्षु श्रिदा सहस्रशो वैशागुं एदईमहे असौ यावसर्वदिनीरग्रीवो विलोहितः उदैनं गोपा अदृशन्नदृशन्नुदहार्यः उदैनं विश्वा भूतानि सदृष्टो मृदयादिनः नमो अस्तु नीलग्रीवाय सहस्राक्षाय मीदुषे अतो ये अस्य सद्वानोऽहं देव्यो करन्नमः प्रमुञ्चदन्वनस्तमुभयोराग्नियोज्याम् याश्च देहस्त इषवः परादा भगवो बभा अवदद्यदनुस्त्वगुं सहस्राक्षजदेशुरे ऋषिरशल्यानां मुखा शिवो न सुमना भव विद्यं धनुः कवर्दिनो विजल्यो बाणवागुम् उदा अनेशन्नस्येषव आपुरस्य निशं गदिः या देहेतिर्मीदुष्टमहस्ते बभूवते धनुः तयास्मान् विश्वदस्तमयक्ष्मया परिभुजा नमस्ते अस्त्वायुधाय नाददाय कृष्णवे उभाभ्यामुदते नमो बाहुभ्यां तव धन्वने परिदे धन्वनो हेतिरस्मान् वृणक्तु विश्वदः अतो य इषुदिष्टवारे अस्मन्निदेहिदम् नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिगाग्निघालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः। नमो हिरण्यवाहवे सेनानेदिजां जपदये नमो नमो वृक्षेभ्यो हरिकेशेभ्यः पशूनां पदये नमो नमः। सस्विञ्जराय द्विषेमदेवतीनां पदये नमो नमो बभ्लुजाय विव्याधिनेनानां पदये नमो नमो हरिकेशायोपवीदिने पुष्टानां पदये नमो नमो भवस्य हेत्यै जगदां पदये नमो नमो रुद्राय ददाविने क्षेत्राणां पदये नमो नमः। सूदाय हन्याय वनानां पदये नमो नमो रोहिताय स्तपदये वृक्षाणां पदये नमो नमो मन्द्रिणे वाणिजाय कक्षाणां पदये नमो नमो भुवन्दये वारिवस्कृतायोषधीनां पदये नमो नमः। उच्चैघोषाय ग्रन्थयदे बद्धीनां पदये नमो नमः। कृष्णवीदाय दावदे सद्वनां पदये नमः। नमः सहमानाय निर्व्याधिन आव्याधिनीनां पदये नमो नमः। ककुवाय निषङ्गिने सेनानां पदये नमो नमो निषङ्गिन इषुधिमते तस्कराणां पदये नमो नमो वञ्जदे परिवञ्जदे स्थायूनां पदये नमो नमो निचेरवे परिचराय अरण्यानां पदये नमो नमः। श्रीगाविभ्यो जिगागुंदद्भ्यो मुष्णदां पदये नमो नमो सिमद्भ्यो नक्तं चरद्भ्यः प्रगन्धानां पदये नमो नमः। उष्णीषिणे गिरिचराय कुलुञ्जानां पदये नमो नमः। इषुमद्योदन्वावीर्यश्च वो नमो नमः। आदन्वानेभ्यः प्रतिददानेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः। आयच्छद्यो वृषजद्यश्च वो नमो नमो यद्यो विद्यद्यश्च वो नमो नमः। आसीनेभ्यश्च शयानेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः। स्वपद्यो जागृद्यश्च वो नमो नमस्तिष्ठद्यो दावद्यश्च वो नमो नमः। सभाभ्यः सभापतिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। अश्वेभ्यो अश्वपतिभ्यश्च वो नमः। नम आव्याधिनीभ्यो विविद्यन्तीभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः। उगनाभ्यस्तृगं हदिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। गृत्सेभ्यो गृत्सपदिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। व्रादेभ्यो व्रातपदिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। गणेभ्यो गणपतिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। विरूपेभ्यो विश्वरूपेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो। महद्यः शुल्लकेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो रतिभ्यो रदेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमो रदेभ्यो रदपदेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः सेनानीभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः क्षत्तर्भ्यः षण्गहीतर्भ्यश्च वो नमो नमस्तक्षभ्यो रथधारेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः कुलालेभ्यः कर्मारेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः पुञ्जिष्टेभ्यो निषादेभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः इषुकृद्यो धन्वकृद्यश्च वो नमो नमो मृगयुभ्यश्वनिभ्यश्च वो नमो नमः प्रभ्यश्वपदेभ्यश्च वो नमः नमो भवाय च रुद्राय च नमः शर्वाय च पशुपतये च नमो नीलग्रीवाय च शितिगन्धाय च नमः कवर्दिने च युक्तगेजाय च नमः सहस्राक्षाय च शतधन्वने च नमो गिरिजाय च शिबिविष्टाय च नमो मीदुष्टमाय चेषुमते च नमो ह्रस्वाय च वामनाय च नमो बृहदे च वर्षीयसे च नमो वृद्धाय च समृद्ध्वने च नमो अग्र्याय च प्रथमाय च नमः आशवेजाजिराय च नमः शीघ्रियाय च शीभ्याय च नमः ऊर्म्याय च वस्वन्याय च नमः सोदस्याय च द्विभ्याय च नमो ज्येष्ठाय च कनिष्ठाय च नमः पूर्वजाय च वरजाय च नमो मध्यमाय च वगल्वाय च नमो जगन्याय च बुद्ध्याय च नमः सोऽभ्याय च प्रतिसर्याय च नमो याम्याय च क्षेम्याय च नमः उर्वर्याय च कल्याय च नमः लोक्याय च वदान्याय च नमो वन्याय च कक्ष्याय च नमः श्रवाय च प्रतिश्रवाय च नमः आजुषेणाय चाजुरदाय च नमः शूराय जावविन्धदे च नमो वर्मिने च वरोदिने च नमो बिल्मिने च कवचिने च नमः स्तुताय च श्रुतसेनाय च नमो दुन्दुभ्याय च हनन्याय च नमो धृष्णवे च प्रमृजाय च नमो दूताय च प्रहिताय च नमो निषङ्गिने चेषुधिमते च नमस्तीक्ष्णे च वेचायुरिने च नमः स्वायुधाय च सुधन्वने च नमः कृत्याय च वद्याय च नमः काद्याय च नीप्याय च नमः सूर्याय च सरस्याय च नमो नाद्याय च वैशन्दाय च नमः कूप्याय च वत्याय च नमो वश्याय च वश्याय च नमो मेघ्याय च विद्युत्याय च नमः ईद्रियाय च दप्याय च नमो वाद्याय च रेश्मियाय च नमो वास्तव्याय च वास्तुवाय च ॐ हर 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 ॐ नमः सोमाय च रुद्राय च नमस्ताम्राय च अरुणाय च नमः शङ्गाय च पशुपतये च नमः उग्राय च भीमाय च नमो अग्रे वदाय च दूरे वदाय च नमो हन्त्रे जहनीयसे च नमो वृक्षेभ्यो हरिकेशेभ्यो नमस्ताराय नमः शम्भवे च मयो भवे च नमः शङ्कराय च मयस्कराय च नमः शिवाय च शिवधराय च नमः ईद्याय च गुल्याय च नमः वार्याय च वार्याय च नमः प्रदरनाय चोदरनाय च नमः आधार्याय च लाद्याय च नमः चष्व्याय च विन्याय च नमः त्रिगद्याय च प्रवाह्याय च नमः ईरिण्याय च प्रपद्याय च नमः किगुंजिलाय च शयनाय च नमः कवर्दिने च पुलस्तये च नमो गोष्ट्याय च गृह्याय च नमस्तल्व्याय च गेह्याय च नमः काद्याय च गह्वरेस्ताय च नमो हृदयाय च निवेश्याय च नमः पागुंसव्याय च रजस्याय च नमः शुष्क्याय च हरित्याय च नमो लोप्याय चोलप्याय च नमः ऊर्याय च शून्याय च नमः पन्याय च पन्नशद्याय च नमो भगुरमानाय च विघ्नदे च नमः आगिरदे च ब्रक्किरदे च नमो किरिकेभ्यो देवानागं हृदयेभ्यो नमो विक्षीणगेभ्यो नमो विचिन्वत्केभ्यो नमः निर्हदेभ्यो नमः आमिवत्केभ्यः द्रावे अन्नसस्वदे दरिद्रन्नीललोहिता येषां पुरुषाणाम् येषां पशूनां माभिर्मा रोमो येषां किञ्चन ममद या ते रुद्र शिवा धनो शिवा विश्वः भेषजी शिवा रुद्रस्य भेषजी दयानो मृदजीवसे इमागुं रुद्राय तपसे कपर्दिने शयद्वीराय प्रवरामये मदिं यदा नश्यमसद्विपदे चतुष्पदे विश्वं पुष्टं ग्रामे अस्मिन्ननातुरम् निदानो रुद्रोदनो मयस्कृतिक् शयद्वीराय नमसा विधीमदे यच्चं च योश्च मनुराय जे विदातदस्यामतवरुद्ध प्रणीदोः मानो महान्दमुदमानो अर्भकं मान उक्षन्दमुदमान उक्षिदम् मानो बलिः पितरं मोदमादरं प्रियमानस्तनुवो रुद्धरीरिषः मानस्तोकेदनये मान आयुषिमानो गोषुमानो अश्वेषुरीरिषः वीरान्मानो रुद्धवामिदो बलिर्हविष्मन्धो नमसा विधीमदे आराधे गोग्न उदुपूरुषग्ने क्षयद्वीराय त्वं नमस्मेरे अस्तु रक्षा च नो अधिजदेव ब्रूयराजनः शर्म यच्छत् विबर्हाः स्तुहिश्रतं दत्त सदैयुवानं मृगन्न भीममुदमद्दुमुग्रम् विदाचरित्ये रुद्धस्तवानो अन्यन्ते अस्मन्निव बन्धुसेनाः परिणो रुद्रस्य हेतिर्विनक्तु परिवेशस्य दुर्मतिरगायोः अवस्थिरामगवद्वयस्तनुष्वामी वस्तोकायतनयाय मृदया मीदुष्टम शिवतम शिवो नः सुमना भव वरमे वृक्ष आयुधन्निदाय कृत्तिं वसान आचन विनागं बिभ्रदागहि विगिरिदविलोहित नमस्ते अस्तु भगवः यास्ते सहस्रगुं हेदयोन्यमस्मन्निव बन्धुदाः सहस्राणि सहस्रदा बाहुवोस्तव हेतयः तासामीशानो भगवः पराचीनामुगाग्रिदि सहस्राणि सहस्रशो ये वृद्धा अधिभूम्याम् तेजागुं सहस्रयोजने वदन्वानि दन्मसि अस्मिन् महज्जर्नवेन्दरिक्षे भवादि नीलग्रीवाशिरिगन्धा शर्वादः क्षमाचराः नीलग्रीवाशिरिगन्धादिवगुं रुद्र उपश्रिताः ये वृक्षेषु सस्मिञ्जरा नीलग्रीवा विलोहिताः ये भूतानामधिपतयो विशिकाश कवर्दिनः ये अन्येषु विविद्यन्ति पात्रेषु विवदो जनान् ये वदाम्बदिलक्षलैरभृदायव्युदः ये देदानि व्रजरन्ति शिखाबन्धो निषङ्गिनः य एतावन्तश्च भूयागुंसश्च दिशो रुद्धाभिदस्थिरे तेषागुं सहस्रयोजने वदन्वानि दन्मसि नमो रुद्रेभ्यो ये पृथिव्यां येऽन्तरिक्षे ये दिवि येषामन्नं द्वादो वर्षमिषवस्तेभ्यो दश प्राचे दश दक्षिणा दश प्रदीचे दशोदीचे दशोद्वास्तेभ्यो नमस्ते नो मृदयन्तु देयं विष्मो यश्च नोद्वेष्टितं भो चम्बे ददामि त्र्यम्बके यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनात् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् यो रुद्रो अग्नो यो अप्सु य ओषधीषु यो रुद्रो विश्वा भुवना विवेश तस्मै रुद्राय नमो अस्तु ये ते सहस्रमयुधं बाजा मृत्यो मध्याय हन्तवे तान्यज्ञस्य मायया सर्वानवयजामहे मृत्यवे स्वाहा मृत्यवे स्वाहा प्राणानां ग्रन्थिरसि रुद्रो माविशान्तकः तेनानेनाभ्ययस्व नमो रुद्राय विष्णवे मृत्युर्मे भाहि तमुस्तु हि अस्विषु सुदन्वायो विश्वस्य च यदि वेषजस्य यक्ष्वा महेशो मनसाय रुद्रं नमो बिर्देवसुरं दुवस्य अयं मे हस्तो भगवान् अयं मे भगवत्तरः अयं मे विश्ववेशजो यगुं शिवा विमरुशनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः संयमे मयश्च मे प्रियं च मे नुकामश्च मे कामश्च मे सोमनसश्च मे भद्रं च मे श्रेयश्च मे वश्यश्च मे यशश्च मे भगश्च मे दविनं च मे यन्दा च मे दर्दा च मे क्षेमश्च मे दिदिश्च मे विश्वं च मे महश्च मे संदिच्च मे ज्ञातं च मे सुश्च मे भ्रसुश्च मे क्षीरं च मे लयश्च मर्दं च मे मृदं च मे यक्ष्मं च मे नामयच्च मे जीवादुश्च मे दीर्घायुध्वं च मे नमित्रं च मे भयं च मे सुखं च मे शयनं च मे सुजा च मे सुदिनं च मे ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। स्वस्तिः प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्ताम् न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषाः। गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यम्। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्।
अम्बिकतनया गजानना गजवदना गणनाथ गजानना गजवदना गणनाथ गजानना पाहि गणेश विनायक पाहि गणेश विनायक त्रिभुवन पालक मंगलदायक त्रिभुवन पालक मंगलदायक विद्या गजानना गजवदना गणनाथ गजानना आई गणेश विनायक त्रिभुवन पालक मंगलदायक विद्या बुद्धि सिद्धि प्रदायक पाई गणेश विनायक पाई गणेश विनायक पाई गणेश विनायक अम्बिकतनया गजानना
गिरिधर बाला हे नंदलाला गिरिधर बाला हे नंदलाला देवकी नंदन श्याम गोपाला देवकी नंदन श्याम गोपाला गिरिधर बाला हे नंदलाला केशव माधव श्याम गोपाला केशव माधव श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला बंसीधर हे श्याम गोपाला बंसीधर हे साई गोपाला गिरिधर बाला हे नंदलाला देवकी नंदन श्याम गोपाला गिरिधर बाला हे नंदलाला केशव माधव श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला श्याम गोपाला बंसीधर हे श्याम गोपाला Gopala. Bansidhar he Sai Gopala.
Krishna is here, Lord Krishna is there. Let us chant the name of Shri Krishna, for the Lord is everywhere. Lord Krishna is here, Lord Krishna is there. Let us chant the name of Shri Krishna, for the Lord is everywhere. Lord Krishna is here, Lord Krishna is there. Let us chant the name of Shri Krishna, for the Lord is everywhere. He dwells in all his devotees' heart and purifies all the evil thought. He dwells in all his devotees' heart and purifies all the evil thought. He is the creator of this universe. He is the creator of this universe. His name must always come first, for he is the only one who can quench our thirst. Jai 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 Krishna Hare. Lord Krishna is here, Lord Krishna is there. Let us chant the name of Shri Krishna, for the Lord is everywhere.
गोविंद कृष्ण जय गोपाल कृष्ण जय गोपाल बाल बाल राधा कृष्ण जय गोविंद कृष्ण जय गोपाल कृष्ण जय गोपाल बाल बाल राधा कृष्ण जय Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna 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 Jai. Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna 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 Jai. Gopika-mala hari pyari, Mayi meera muktar, Bhalan mohan puranidhar, Krishna Jai. Gopika-mala hari pyari, Mayi meera manavihar, Bhalan mohan puranidhar, Krishna Jai. Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna 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 Jai. Krishna Jai, Rama Krishna Jai, Radha Krishna Jai, Bala Krishna 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 Jai. Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna Jai, Krishna 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 Jai. Govinda Krishna Jai, Gopala Krishna Jai, Gopala Bala Bala Krishna Jai.
तत्सत् श्रीनारायण तु पुरुषोत्तम गुरु तु सिद्धबुद्ध तु स्कन्द विनायक सविता पावक तु सविता पावक तु ब्रह्ममज तु यहोव शक्ति तु येषु पिता प्रभु तु रुद्र विष्णु तु राम कृष्ण तु रहीमताओ तु रहीमताओ तु वासुदेव गो विश्वरूप तु चिदानंद हरि तु अद्वितीय तु अकाल निर्भय आत्मलिंग शिव तु आत्मलिंग शिव तु आत्मलिंग शिव तु असतो मा सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमया ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
I offer my humble pranams at the lotus feet of our Divine Lord, Bhagavan Sri Sai Ram. Loving Sai Rams, respected elders, brothers, sisters, and our dear Sai blossoms. A very warm welcome to this morning's Krishna Janmashtami celebrations. Swami says in Sai Vani, and I quote, Krishna's advent signifies the dispelling of darkness, the removal of troubles, banishing of ignorance, and teaching mankind supreme wisdom. Krishna is said to have been in Mathura, he grew up in Vrindavan, and he established his home finally in Dwarka. The significance of this to the sadhaka is, let Krishna be born in the Gokula of your mind, let him grow and play pranks in the Vrindavan of your heart, let him then be fixed in the Chitta of Mathura, and finally, let him rule over the agitationless consciousness as the Lord and Master of Dwarka. Today's infographic is as follows. The Vedas declare, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. God is present in all beings. You are unable to see Him because you must see nature from the physical point of view. Give up the worldly feeling and see nature with divine feelings. Then God will certainly manifest before you. Satyasai Speaks, Volume 33. Sister Prisla from the Westcliff Sai Center will now share her experience on the 108 gems.
Aum Sri Sai Varadaye Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who bestows his boons on all and who is the giver of boons. On Swami Samadhi, the 24th of April 2020, I offered prasadam to Swami, and on that night I had this dream of Swami. Swami was in a sleeping position and I was sitting beside his feet. And suddenly, Swami sat up and started talking to me. And whilst talking, he was waving his index finger and thumb continuously. But I could not hear nor understand what Swami was saying to me. And then Swami gave me a white cloth with something inside and placed it on my hand, on my left hand. And when I looked inside the cloth, I was amazed to see so many precious stones. and amongst these stones there was a ring. Swami covered it with his hand and went back to his sleeping position. I understand when Swami appears in someone's dream, it's just not a dream. As I feel blessed to have had this experience, I also wish that I could understand the message Swami was giving me. Aum Sai Ram.
Thank you, Sister Prisla, for sharing your experiences with us. The regional announcements are as follows. The COVID pandemic is unrelenting and is affecting every one of us, as we have lost family, friends, and colleagues to this disease. I humbly request that we all keep those that are ill and those that have lost loved ones in our prayers. May Swami grant them the strength and courage during these trying times. The regional devotional program will continue every Sunday with morning prayers from 5:30 a.m. This week's Avan will be conducted by the Havenside Sai Center. And also a reminder that our regional Veda classes will continue from 9:15 a.m. We must all continue with the Go Green activities, and that is the planting of trees, veg gardens, spec booms, the making of eco bricks. We should also make every effort to recycle, reuse, and reduce. And to assist with this, all your wash cans, paper, and electronic items can be dropped off at Sai Prema. Please contact your Center Go Green champion for more information. Dear Sai family, I pray that Swami keeps you and your family safe, and may Lord Krishna shower his richest blessings upon you all. Jai Sai Ram.
My salutations to our Master, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, and Aum Sri Sai Ram to all. The following is a story relating to the events that took place the night that Lord Krishna was born. It highlights the importance of God's will. Nothing can stop the will of God. In Mathura, there lived a king. He had a son known as Kamsa and a daughter known as Devaki. Kamsa had grown to become very evil and treated the people very badly. He ruled Mathura while sending his father to the dungeons. Devaki, his sister, was to marry Vasudev from the neighboring land. On the wedding day of Devaki and Vasudev, a divine voice appeared before Kamsa and informed him, "Evil Kamsa, your tyranny is coming to an end. The eighth child of Devaki will be the one to slay you and end your rule." Kamsa was obviously very scared about this and proceeded directly to Devaki and Vasudev. He asked them, "How can a child of yours kill me?" He ordered his guards to take them to the dungeons. Whenever Devaki gave birth, he would snatch the baby from her and kill the child. Devaki and Vasudev, now knowing the prophecy of the eighth child, were concerned as to how they will protect this child from Kamsa. The birth of the eighth child was very different from the others. It was a very stormy night. The Yamuna river outside was raging. The eighth child was born. The child was silent, did not cry, as if he had known that he should not let anyone know of his birth. Immediately the chains that held Vasudev's hands in the dungeon had broken off. The door to the dungeons had swung open, as if instructing Vasudev that now is the right moment to leave and take the child to safety. At this moment the guards were also in a deep sleep. A divine voice had told Vasudev to take this child to Yashoda and Nanda's house in Gokul. There he would find that Yashoda too was also expecting a girl child to be born that night. He was instructed by the divine voice to leave his son besides Yashoda and bring back with him the girl child that would be born at the same time. Vasudev picked up his son and rushed out of the dungeons. As he got out the dungeons, he realized how bad the storm was and that he had to cross this raging rivers. But he knew he had to complete this task in order to ensure the safety of the child. He carried the baby in a basket over his head, and as he took the first step into the river, the water had created a path for Vasudeva to walk through unharmed. He was then able to reach Yashoda's house and complete what he was instructed to do, and return with the girl baby to the dungeon, passing by the guards that were still asleep. The baby then cried, and the guards woke up and saw that what was going on. They immediately informed Kamsa. Kamsa wanted to take no chances and immediately rushed to kill the child. But to his amazement, the child had transformed into a form of Mother Durga. And with a strong voice she said, "The eighth child of Devaki still lives, and your end is near." Thus began the story of Lord Krishna. The eighth child of Devaki was Lord Krishna. He would go on to be nurtured by Mother Yashoda in Vrindavan, and Krishna would eventually slay Kamsa for his evil deeds. This short story from Krishna's life teaches us that nothing can change the will of God. When God decides that he shall be born on this earth to restore Dharma, none can change the circumstances around us. The chains around Vasudeva's hand miraculously broke open, and so did the door of the dungeons. Kamsa's guards were asleep, and the Yamuna river miraculously gave way to Vasudeva and baby Krishna to ensure their safety. All of this happened because of God's will. Often we contemplate about why certain situations occur in our lives. We too should understand that this is the will of God. We must have some comfort in believing in God's will. I wish you all a blessed Gita week. Jai Sai Ram.
Aum Sri Sai Ram, Arjuna's pride. Once Arjuna went towards South India on his conquering expedition on his coming to Ramesetu, where Rama had built a bridge to go over to Lanka. He was filled with pride at his unrivaled skill with the bow. He felt that he was superior even to Rama, for Rama had piled it up laboriously, stone upon stone. Arjuna said rather loudly, "If I were Rama, I would have twanged my bow and built an arch of arrows across the sea over which the army could have marched safely along." Hanuman surprised Arjuna by presenting himself before him with a grin, which Arjuna felt made him even uglier. He challenged him to build one so that at least one monkey, that is himself, could walk across, not to speak of the vast army. It was agreed that should Arjuna fail, he should atone for his sin of trying to decry Rama because of his vanity by putting an end to his own life. Arjuna shot arrows one after another, and they got entangled with one another in such strong interlinks that a huge structure was formed bridging India and Lanka. Hanuman declared that it was too fragile. Arjuna agreed to immolate himself if the bridge could not stand his weight. Hanuman walked only a few paces on the bridge when he crashed under his weight and crumbled into the sea. True to his word, Arjuna lit a fire and was about to enter it to expiate the sin of pride that made him feel superior to Ram. Just then Krishna appeared and asked him the reason for the strange move of Arjuna, as if he did not know it. In fact, that was the very reason why he appeared on the scene. When he was told of the wager and the failure of Arjuna, he declared that any agreement can be valid only when it was made before a witness. How could the parties be trusted, since it was their interest to modify the conditions to their advantage? So he wanted the bridge to be built again and Hanuman to break it again. It was done, and Hanuman walked on it as before, But try as he might with all his strength and weight, the bridge was absolutely intact. Hanuman jumped on it, but not a dent was caused. The secret was Krishna, in his subtle form, was supporting the bridge with his back whenever Hanuman's steps were placed. The same back that held the Mandara mountain in position during the churning of the ocean of milk by the gods and demons. This was noticed by Arjuna and Hanuman when bleeding started on Krishna's back. Both the heroes realized that the Lord had interceded to save the honor of his devotee. Arjuna was thus humbled. He fell at the feet of Hanuman and prayed to him for help in his subsequent battles. Hanuman too agreed to extend his help, realizing that Arjuna was a beloved devotee of Lord Krishna. Accordingly, during the battle of Kurukshetra, Hanuman was present on the flag of Arjuna's chariot, guarding him as well as giving the strength till the Pandavas were finally destroyed. Jai Sai Ram.
The story today is from the Mahabharata entitled Sage Roma Rishi, the Pandavas, and Bhagavan Shri Krishna. When one takes shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, one can be saved from dangers we face in our life. The difference is that devotees of the Lord always turn to him, chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, not like ordinary people who turn to the power of their own strength, relatives, money, etc. Here's a simple story to illustrate the power of devotion and faith in Bhagavan Shri Krishna. The Pandavas, during the time of their exile, once walked into the forest of Roma Rishi and came across a sacred tree which bears a special fruit which, tasted by a person, would relieve him of hunger and thirst for years. But the fruit was not to be plucked. It was to be eaten only when it fell to the ground on its own. So one day, Dharmaraja and Draupadi saw the tree, and Draupadi was very much tempted to taste that luscious fruit hanging from the tree. So she said, "Can we not take the fruit? We can all share it." So Dharmaraja shot an arrow and the fruit fell to the ground. He went to pick the fruit, but it was so heavy that he could not even move it with both his hands. Draupadi also tried, but in vain. Arjuna arrived and he too tried to lift the fruit, but could not succeed. So all three tried to lift the fruit together, but it would not move. The two younger brothers, Nakula and Sahadeva, came and tried to lift the fruit, but they too could not succeed. And finally came the mighty hero, Bhima, and he said, "I will lift it," but even Bhima failed. Meanwhile, the hair of Roma Rishi had spread all over the area, and it began to move. Roma Rishi realized that someone is trying to steal the fruit, so he had become furious. The hairs started coming together and coiling around the Pandavas to tie them up. Draupadi realized the danger and immediately prayed to Bhagavan Shri Krishna, and Shri Krishna appeared before them. Draupadi fell at his lotus feet and prayed for help. Shri Krishna said, "Sister, I am helpless. Roma Rishi is great sage. I reside in his heart. How can I do anything against the wishes of my devotees?" Draupadi again pleaded, "You alone can save us and do anything if you wish to." Shri Krishna said, "I will help you, but all of you be totally silent and do exactly as I tell you." Draupadi and the Pandavas promised to obey his orders. So Shri Krishna went towards Roma Rishi's ashram and instructed them to follow later. Meantime, Roma Rishi started to walk towards a tree to curse the poachers. Just then, Bhagavan Shri Krishna entered the ashram. Roma Rishi fell at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. He was overjoyed to see Shri Krishna. He said, "How fortunate am I to have you as my guest. O Bhagavan, what can I do for you?" Shri Krishna spoke to him about spiritual matters till the Pandavas arrived. As soon as the Pandavas and Draupadi reached the ashram, Shri Krishna hurried towards them and fell at their lotus feet. The Pandavas were feeling embarrassed but remembered the Lord's command, "Keep quiet." So when Roma Rishi saw Sri Krishna fall at the feet of the Pandavas, he too fell at the feet of the visitors. Roma Rishi forgot about the fruit and the poachers. Krishna informed Roma Rishi that the Pandavas were the people who were tempted to taste the fruit, being unaware of the unique kind of the fruit. Roma Rishi desired to please those who could please Bhagavan himself. He said, "Let them take the fruit. I would like them to have it." By eating the fruit, the Pandavas were able to live without hunger for a long time. So the moral of this story is that you should always remember the Lord at all times, just like Draupadi. He will always be there for you in whatever situation you may be in. Hare Krishna.
అద్దమందున ప్రతిబింబమంటనటుల తామరాకులు నీటిచే తడుపనటుల అద్దమందున ప్రతిబింబమంటునటుల తామరాకులు నీటిచే తడుపనటుల పాపములు అంటవు మానవుని భక్తి వలన పాపములంటవు మానవుని భక్తి వలన పాపములు అంటవు మానవుని భక్తి వలన అంటవు మానవుని భక్తి వలన
ॐ जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतिका आश्रित कल्पलतिका आपतान्धवा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे मातपिता गुरुदैवमु मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्रशयन ॐ जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी हो साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल आरती अंधुको मंगल आरती अंधुको मंगल गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थइष्टार्थमोक्षप्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थइष्टार्थमोक्षप्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि परमं पवित्रं बाबा विभूतिं परमं विचित्रं लीला विभूतिं परमार्थइष्टार्थमोक्षप्रदानं बाबा विभूतिं इदमाश्रयामि।
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्।